I got into the staffing business because my dad was in the staffing business. He had spent 18 years with Kelly Girl, and then he left Kelly because he wanted to live in California, came to California, opened up his own company called Thomas Temporaries, and right after I graduated from college, I went to work for my dad, and basically spent 5 years working for my father, and then he sold the company to a Swiss firm, and the Swiss firm made me president when I was 28, and I took over the company, ran it for 5 years, and at the end of our non-compete, I decided that I was working way too hard and was underappreciated for what I was doing, and so I decided it was time for me to grow up and start my own company. And so in 1986, I left and I started Kimco Staffing Services. Well, I actually have two companies. Kimco I founded in 1986, which is a staffing company. We started as an administrative staffing firm doing both temp and perm placement of administrative employees. Shortly thereafter, we went into a recession and the staffing business for administration slowed down, and we had to get into the industrial business to stay alive because that business was still growing. And so we got into that business. And then in '94, workers' compensation started to become a major problem in California. And we started looking at the information technology business and higher level people, professional people. Workers' comp was much more favorable in the higher levels. And so we started to move more into the professional ranks of IT and engineering. Today we've also added accounting. We have a MediQuest division that does administrative medical for hospitals, doctors' offices, things of that sort. And in 1997, 98, we started KimStaff HR. KimStaff HR is what we call a professional employer organization. And it's really a human resource outsourcing company where small companies can outsource their payroll, their benefits, meaning medical, workers' comp, any requirement that a company would have, government requirement, we would take over that responsibility so that the companies that we handle their staff for, they can focus on running their business and not handling all the HR matters. And so we do all really companies outsource their human resource administration to us. And KimStaff, we have one office in Orange County, but we really serve most of Southern California out of that office. We have salespeople that are located in the different counties of Southern California. And so that business has been around 10 years. Kimco Staffing Services, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary. We operate now out of about 30 offices throughout the state of California. Our mission is to be the best staffing company in California. We're the California expert. California has some very unique employment laws and things of that sort that we think makes it beneficial for companies to have somebody that really understands the California market. We want to be a full-service company, handle administrative, manufacturing, IT, engineering, scientific, accounting and finance. We're really trying to work the gamut. We've been adding additional services as the company's matured. And we want to have the highest integrity. We want to be known for high integrity. We want to be known for high levels of service. We want to be known for competitively being priced, not the lowest price, but mid-priced. You get what you pay for, but we're a quality-oriented company, quality service, quality attention, high touch, providing fully screened personnel to meet their needs both on a temporary and a full-time basis. We do. I mean, we outsource. We have software suppliers that are outside. we we do outsource. We use recruiters for our own business, outside recruiters periodically, and I mean we want to utilize our talents as best we can. We want to use vendors as best as they can provide us services, and be as efficient as possible. Today, pricing is everything today, and you've got to have a quality service and a low price, or you're not going to be in business very long. You've got to be competitive. On the staffing side, the beauty is we see an awful lot of employees. We employ about 16,000 people annually that come through our doors. The average length that they work for us is about 3 months. And part of the reason that that period of time is short is that over 65% of our employees actually get hired by our clients after they've decided, boy, we really like this person. They've had an opportunity to kind of try them before they buy them scenario. And I think that outsourcing has grown dramatically. The staffing business was fairly young when I got into it back in 1975. Back then, we were selling the concept of temporary staffing. Today, it's a pretty well household name. Most everybody knows about temporary staffing, but it's extremely competitive, and there are a lot of companies doing it. So the market is very, very large. Today in the U.S., about 1.5% of all employees are temporary employees today. We still feel that there's an awful lot of room for growth. In Europe and places like that, it's more like 3.5% of employment. So they've been doing temporary staffing for a lot longer time outside the U.S. than they have in the U.S. Starting a company is a little different because you basically are creating everything from scratch. And as an entrepreneur and a founder, you have to be extremely proactive as opposed to being reactive. Nothing happens until you make it happen. And it takes somebody that's flexible. It takes somebody that can move quickly, make decisions quickly. You don't have a lot of time. When I started Kimco, I had limited capital. I knew I could only lose so much money before I was out of money. I had to make a profit within basically a year, or I wasn't going to be around. And so I had to have a model that would fit with the capital that I had to start the company. I had to know what I was going to do. I had to know how I was going to do it and how much it was going to cost me. And I had to do it very, very rapidly. So I think for somebody to start up something new, it requires different skills than running a business that's already going. An existing business is established, it has an infrastructure. A new company has no infrastructure. It took me 10 years to build a significant infrastructure for Kimco Staffing. For 10 years, we were creating. We were trying to make something that was unique and different and differentiate ourselves from the competition. Those differences sometimes are not very big, but there are a lot of little things and not any one big thing. But it's being an entrepreneur in a very competitive business requires you to do some things differently and to not just follow what everybody else is doing, and to try to be ahead of the game a little bit or provide something new. Well, I really felt when we hit 25 million in sales that I'd kind of made it a little bit. But to be honest with you, that was a misconception. You know, I had certain goals as I grew this company: 25 million, 50 million, 100 million. Today we're about 110 million in revenue. As I got bigger, I felt that I was more untouchable. But as I got bigger, I realized that that's not the truth. The bigger you are, the more vulnerable you are. The bigger you are, everybody wants to go after you. The bigger you are, the more exposure you have. So the one thing I realized is that running a company, you can never relax. When you start to relax is the day somebody else starts to take over, or one of your competitors starts to get ahead of you. And that's a very difficult lesson to learn. You just can never relax when you're running a business. Every recession has been a major challenge. And in my career at Kimco, we have now, I've really experienced two major recessions where we had revenue drops of anywhere from 10 to 35% drop in revenue. And anytime you have that kind of drop, you have to cut expenses. And so I've had two cases where I've had to really cut staff within my organization in order to survive. And that has been very, very difficult to do. However, probably the biggest challenge that I ever had was in in 2003, when my workers' comp insurance carrier canceled my insurance. And I couldn't buy workers' comp coverage. Couldn't get an insurance company to write me in the state of California. They didn't like the staffing and the outsourcing business from a risk standpoint, even though they'd never had any problems with our company. But the industry, there were some problems in the industry, particularly in the outsourcing industry, that insurance companies were having a hard time getting their hands around the risk that they were writing. So they just basically boilerplated and said, we're not going to do that kind of business anymore. And I had to convince them to give me 90 days notice. And in 90 days, we went and got self-insured directly by the state of California, meaning I really was starting my own insurance company. That was the biggest single challenge I've ever had in my career. When you talk about being an entrepreneur, you have to be focused on all of those things. And that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is that you have to do them all, and you have to do them all at the same time and be involved in all of them at the same time. And you have to be the best you can be in all of those. And that's what's difficult, because we all have certain things that we tend to like better than others. And some come more difficult than others. We can outsource them, but usually vendors only perform to the level that you require them to perform. So you have to set the expectations. You have to approve the deliverables. And they basically perform to what you expect. And sometimes you have vendors that don't perform and you have to fire them. But as an entrepreneur and as an owner of a company and as a president of a company, the buck stops here. So the product that is produced is only as good as what you demand. And the more demanding you are of yourself, the more demanding you'll be of others around you, and the higher the expectations that you'll establish for those people. Obviously, you have to be reasonable or nobody will work for you. So it's a very, very tight balancing act. And I think the other thing is that you have to know where to spend your time. Spend your time in areas that you're very strong, and try to bring others in for those areas that you're not as strong. And probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made was I tried to do my own accounting at night when I first started the company, and it wasn't that difficult, but had I brought in more professional talent to help me, I might have structured our financials and things of that looking further down the road and not made some mistakes that later on took some time and money to correct. And but on the other hand, accounting was the side that I was least experienced in, and that I felt by doing my own accounting and learning what I had to do and understanding it, that I'd be a better businessman. And I think there were some tremendous benefits there because I understand accounting. I understand information processing and things of that sort much better than I would if I hadn't done it. So there are trade-offs, but that's one of the questions that I have in my own mind. Should I have done that, or should I have paid to bring in a more experienced individual to do the accounting, or at least to help me set it up a little bit better than possibly what I did? And that's the other thing. As an entrepreneur, you have to always weigh, do I spend money and get more significant help, or do I do it at a lower cost and maybe not as good quality? I think we all ask ourselves that every day. And you know, certainly you have the balance between business and family. And I think what you really have to do is spend your time where it's going to get you your most bang for the buck. And I think that varies by business by business. In my business, we were a sales organization. We were selling customers to use our services, and we were selling individuals to come in and go to work for us. I had to spend the majority of my time selling, either selling candidates to go to work for us or companies to use our services. And I think that, you know, I had to spend most of my focus on selling companies, and really did that for the first 15 years. I spent most of my time just working on building a strong sales organization. And I really dedicated the service side to some other people that had better skills suited to that. As we've grown and the company has gotten bigger, I think I've had to split my time more 50-50 between sales and service because of the size of the organization and the coordination. And certainly as we got bigger, coordination became more important. As a small company, being an entrepreneur, I could call all the shots. But I had to do it quickly, and I had to delegate. As a bigger organization, the job totally changes. And you're not doing things yourself anymore. You're working through other people. So totally different. And I guess that speaks back to your earlier question about running an existing company versus a startup. In a startup, you have to be involved in everything. And people are looking for you to have answers to everything. And people are looking for you to set the value structure, to set what the mission statement is, to set the sales message, to establish the marketing plan, and who you are, who you want to be, where you want to go. But as you get bigger, that changes. You have to involve more and more people in that process. There's only one way. That's to talk to your customers on a regular basis and ask them, what can I do better for you? What do you need to have done? What would you like to have fixed if you really could? I mean, a lot of times clients don't ask you because they don't think that you can help them. They have an expectation that you're not going to help them. And a person that can get beyond that and help solve more and more problems, and solve the problems that there's no expectation to solve, are the people who really get endeared to by the clients. The other thing is that I've always found that clients have much greater loyalty when you solve mistakes and you do it well, than companies that just come in and do a good job, because everybody's going to have mistakes. But I think it's solving mistakes for clients, living up to mistakes, learning from mistakes, improving, that is what endears your clients to you, and providing a more consistent service. And the only way you do that is by talking to the client. MBA holders, they understand business a little bit better. They understand business models better. They understand the inner workings of the different departments better. I think some MBA students have trouble being entrepreneurs because they like structure. And in startup businesses, there is no structure. The structure has to be created. And it's funny, every time I've had MBA students come in and look at my business, and I've had it happen a couple times, they want to create structure. They want to have systems and processes and things of that sort. And there's never enough. And they can be good, but you can also create too many systems, too many processes, too many reports. You can get bogged down in information overload. And there's got to be the right balance between information, reporting, and doing the job. I think MBAs can be great from the standpoint of they understand the dynamics of an organization a little better because they've had more experience looking at all aspects of a business. So that's a step up against somebody that hasn't. I think MBA students, just the fact that they got their MBA, they show a higher level of motivation, a greater desire for success, a greater desire for achievement and responsibility. So I think those are all positives. The biggest problem that I've had with some of the MBA people is they want to analyze things too much, when if you looked at some of the basic indicators, you could tell the whole story and get on with it. I think an MBA student has to understand cycles. I think that they've studied life cycles of organizations, and I think that's very helpful. I think that's very helpful. My employees who understand the life cycle of our business and the fact that we can't predict the cycles, I think is a big, big benefit. The other thing I will say to you is I've only been in business 20 years because I've anticipated cycles and I've cut expenses before I bled to death. You can always overcut, but you can't replace profits that are lost. My preferred method is face-to-face. Communication is still the most difficult thing that I do every day. And I communicate to people and think that they understand what I am saying. And later I found out they didn't have a clue what I was getting at. I love email, but I don't do anything important by email. Anything that is important, and we have a standing rule in our organization, any disagreement or anything that is important has to be done face-to-face. Not via email, not via voicemail, but face-to-face. And you have to have an opportunity to have instantaneous two-way dialogue. You need to not only hear but see and read the body language and all of those things to have a hope of communicating correctly. And so I will tell you that I love technology. I am a techie guy. I enjoy technology. But there is no substitute for face-to-face meetings with clients, with employees, with prospective employees. We still have a requirement in our company. Any candidate we're going to place on a job, we have had to have met face-to-face. That is one of our cardinal rules and values. The biggest job we ever had was for the 1984 Olympics. The biggest job that I've ever done was to handle the transportation for the 1984 Olympics here in Los Angeles. We had to hire all the bus drivers, dispatchers, loaders, mechanics to operate all of the transportation for the 84 Olympic Games. And part of the reason they came to a staffing company was that the busing companies throughout Southern California and Northern California were all unionized, and they all had different unions. And to get one busing company to be able to operate the quantity of equipment that they needed to outsource that to a busing company was impossible. They needed someone that understood how to manage large groups of people, how to pay large groups of people. I got that call about 4 months before the '84 Olympics to come in and salvage a transportation system. I didn't have to design the system, I just had to recruit the personnel to operate the system. And so that's what we did. Yes. We have seen the population of California change dramatically over the last 20 years. Today we have Hispanic-speaking employees in every single one of our offices. We also have people that speak Vietnamese in some of our offices. Language has been an issue for us, both in recruiting, in placing, and also working with our clients. Getting different cultures to work together has been a challenge as well. Certainly we've had issues. And it's just one of the many things we've had to deal with in dealing with people. People are very complex. If I was smarter than I am today, I probably wouldn't have gotten into this business. It is certainly not one of the easier businesses. I am at that point in my career where Kimco and Kim staff are now getting to the size that I can't give them individually the attention that they deserve. A year ago, I brought in a COO for each of my organizations, and I've really been turning over day-to-day responsibilities to each of those COOs. I specifically went out and looked for younger people. I wanted to hire somebody that could come in and give continuity to my organization. Unfortunately, I had some great quality employees that worked for me that were, 3 to 5 years away from retirement. But one of the things that's made us strong is we've had continuity of management for 20 years. I'd like to have my business for another 20 years, but I don't want to operate it. And so I have brought in 2 COOs who I hope to eventually make presidents of each of my organizations, and I'll be the chairman, and I'll be kind of a strategic planner and overseer. And my new COOs will take over the day-to-day responsibilities. They haven't been doing it for 20 years. They've been doing it maybe for 10. They both come very experienced in the respective industries. I hired both of them from the outside to bring in some new, fresh ideas for us. But they're enthusiastic. They have an enthusiasm that has started to wane for me, and I can see that. I'm interested in new challenges, not doing the same thing that I've been doing. And I need to grow, and I just felt that it was really time for me to move on. And as opposed to selling the company, I'd like to be involved with it. It's something I've done I've done it now for over 30 years. I know the business. But knowing it and doing it are 2 different things. And you have to, as an entrepreneur, you have to love what you're doing. And you have to be willing to put in the 12 and 14-hour days. And nobody can do it for you. You have to be there, and you have to be right there alongside of those people who are helping you to build your company. And when you get to a point where you're starting to get tired and you can't put in that 10-hour day anymore, it's time to do something better, to bring somebody else in, I think. And so that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to become more of a professional manager. I brought in a couple outside board members to help me, to assist in this transition, because this is new for me. So I went to some guys who are strong entrepreneurs that have grown their businesses way bigger than I've grown mine. And I've asked them to come in and help me to make this transition. And I guess that's the other thing. I think for me, being an entrepreneur, it was all about not knowing everything, having loyal advisors that I could go to, people that had expertise in areas that I didn't have, and not being afraid to say, I'm not quite sure what to do. What would you do in this situation? This is the situation. And I think for me, I've been in business 35 years. It's changed dramatically. Every day is different. I'm learning something new every day. And I'm open to that. I'm open to learning. I don't think you can be a strong entrepreneur unless you're open to learning, and you never stop. And so I think probably one of the greatest qualities that I've had that's helped me to be successful is I never had a problem saying I didn't know quite what to do and go out and get some advice. I ultimately had to make the decision. And I think the other thing is I had the guts to make a mistake. It's never fatal to make a mistake. It is fatal to do nothing. The people who I think are the best role models are the ones that don't make the news. The ones that have a great business, have great values, have great families, loving wives, loving husbands, have great kids, and are able to balance work, family, and have a life. For me, it's about having a life. It's not just about work. It's not just about family. And I think that having balance in my life has been significant for me and has made me be able to perform at a higher level. So having a stable home life is very, very important to me, and a high priority for me. Some of the people that I respect the most are the ones that aren't making all the news. They have very successful companies, and they do make news on their companies, but they also have very successful personal lives and family lives. I've always had a philosophy: work hard and play hard. And I grew up watching a father who worked very hard and postponed living until he retired. And I decided that wasn't something that I wanted to do. I mean, and don't get me wrong, my dad had a great life, but he really didn't play hard until he retired. And fortunately for him, he did that at a fairly young age, at age 50. For me, I've incorporated play in my work. An example of that is, one thing I like to do is fly an airplane. Well, in our company, we have a company jet, which I fly. And I enjoy it. It makes going to my offices fun. It enables me to go to meetings and fly myself beyond my own schedule. I can take employees with me. They get a kick out of it, flying in our own company plane. So I've been able to mix enjoyment with work. I also love the water. I have a boat. I do a lot of boating. I'm an average golfer. I'm a great snow skier. Sports for me kind of went out the window with my children. I spent more time watching them do their things. So, but we did a lot of things together, vacations and things of that sort. So, I mean, my whole goal in life has been to try everything at least once so that I'd know what I wanted to do a second time. I think you have to read a lot of books over a period of time. And some books are more timely than others. I mean, certainly Tom Peters was very instrumental in my career in the early days when he was first becoming very, very successful. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of a Winner type of thing. Those books, and I have to tell you, I don't have time to read all of them, but I read parts of them. I go to their seminars, I hear their stories, I go to their books, I steal their information and use it with my employees. I'm regularly giving books to employees to reinforce points. I'm always looking to reinforce my ideas with authors who are writing about things that I want to accomplish within my business. So I will tell you, I'm a fairly regular, I make a regular stop at the bookstores and look at the best-selling business books, and I peruse them, I take chapters, I give the books to my employees, things of that sort. I don't have a Bible. I haven't found a Bible yet. It would be great to have one. Several years ago, Who Moved My Cheese was a book that was important because things were changing, and we needed to reinforce change within our organization. We needed to make rapid change, and people have difficulty making change. So I gave everybody that book and helped to reinforce what we were doing. I've also brought in outside consultants to train our people on things that I'm trying to reinforce. But I always make it a point to preview them before I bring them in to make sure that the message that they are giving is the message that I want to reinforce. Because sometimes you can bring somebody in thinking they're going to say one thing and they say something else. And so it's been very important to me to control the learning of my organization. Hitting $100 million in revenue for Kimco staffing. That was a humongous achievement. Being in the same business as my father, when my dad recognized that I was running a bigger company, more profitable company than he did, that was pretty significant. And something that I think all sons look to accomplish is the recognition from their dads that they're an equal at some point. That was huge. I think that being a father and having 3 children, and I have 2 out of college and 1 to go, when I get that 3rd one out of college, that will be a major achievement. That will be a major achievement. 10 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. So bringing up 3 teenagers without a wife and running 2 companies, that was a major achievement for me. And you never know what you're capable of handling until you get it thrown on you. And it's unbelievable what we can handle. The best thing that ever happened to me was starting my own business. I got more self-confidence, more self-recognition. I felt better about myself building my own business and being successful than anything I'd ever done before that. Certainly graduating from college was huge. That was a huge accomplishment, and I was the first in my family to do that. But I think, going to work for my dad, taking over my dad's company, even though a Swiss company had made me president, that was a very good feeling. But it was a much better feeling having a company with my name on it and knowing that I'd built it, knowing that I'd brought in every one of those employees that helped start that company. And knowing that I've created something, and it's a big responsibility, because I have the responsibility for my family, plus all the families that rely on our company to provide them their incomes. That's a big responsibility that can't be taken lightly. But it also, gives you a great sense of pride, knowing that you're supporting all of those families. and creating opportunities for people. And I've loved creating opportunities for people within our organization. Try. You never know what you can do until you just try it. And you learn more out of your failures than you do out of your successes. We all make mistakes. They're very seldom are they fatal unless you react quickly and learn from them. You have to learn from your mistakes. But it's a great lesson. So I would say, give it a try.